This is the Shapeoko 5 Pro CNC from Carbide 3D. Probably the best CNC for most garage shops, and I'm gonna tell you why in this video. All right, in this video, we're gonna cover these 5 main points about the Shapeoko 5 Pro, the assembly process. I'm not gonna show you the full assembly, just what I thought about the assembly of this machine. Number 2, what I think about using this machine now that I've had it for a few weeks. I got a first use kind of impression, and after I've used it for a few weeks, kind of give you an impression of what I thought. Number 3, Shapeoko 4 versus Shapeoko 5. What's the main differences and why this is a better machine in my opinion? Not that the 4 is bad, this is just an upgrade of that. Number 4, what I don't like about this machine and some points that I really do like. And finally, number 5, some bits and accessories I think you might want to pick up if you get this machine or any CNC really. If you're interested in checking this out for yourself or anything I talk about today, there'll be links in the description below and the pinned comment so you can find them easier. Let's go. It says 2-person lift, but I accept challenges. And it also says fragile, so keep that in mind. Okay, so I got the Shapeoko 5 Pro 2x4, meaning 2 foot by 4 foot, and it comes in 2 very large boxes, and they are very heavy. They are double boxed, so you don't really have to worry about cutting into anything, opening that outer box. The first thing you notice when you open the boxes is how well packaged this equipment is. It's not gonna get damaged in transit with normal handling. Even if it's bumped around a little bit, you can tell all the nice foam inserts, it's just well packaged. And the main thing I appreciate about Carbide 3D is how well labeled each box and part is. You know exactly what you got in that box. Assembly is going really quick, and that's one thing that I think they've stepped their game up on the Shapeoko 5 Pro versus the 4XXL. The 4XXL took quite a long time to assemble. They've kind of refined that process here. Now this is where things might slow down just a little bit because you have to put all of these screws into this hybrid table. Unless you have a kid or a significant other, you can trick into doing this for you. It's going to take a minute, but you don't want to use power tools because you don't want to strip this out. This is just aluminum, and so it'll strip easily if it's over tightened. Just take your time, get it right. If you pay attention to things like the date, you may notice it's a couple of days later, and it's because I messed up.
Look, I know I screwed up. This is big.
So apparently I threw away or misplaced the cable that operates the spindle, and I couldn't go any further. So I reached out to Carbide 3D support and was like, hey, I think I messed up. They shipped me a new cable, no questions asked. Thank you. That's all I needed. Then now we're in business. Once everything's finally assembled, one thing you may notice when you take everything out of the box is you get everything you need to actually get started with using the CNC, and that's one thing that Carbide 3D has done well. You get clamps, you get the dust boot, you get the hybrid table, and they even include a bit so that you can start cutting right away. A lot of other competitors are gonna leave out like the table. You're gonna figure that out on your own. I really enjoy this table. It has basically standard T-slots in there. They also include T-nuts and bolts and everything you're gonna need to clamp everything down tight. It's just really well done and well thought out in my opinion. For the first job, I'm going to use one of these baseball trays that we sell in the store. It's got an American flag and the baseball kind of intermixed. It's a really cool looking tray. I haven't done anything to this file. We're just going to throw it on this machine and see what happens. This was what I was using on the Shapeoko 4XXL. See how it works on the 5 Pro. All I've done was set my 0, loaded the file. The noise level of the CNC before the Shapeoko 4XXL was extremely loud, especially the router. I was using just a regular router in there, the Carbide router. This has the VFD. It is significantly quieter. Most of what you hear is the ball screws operating or the motors on the CNC, but not the actual spindle. It's impressive. So you may notice my spindle is set quite a bit too low. In other words, that bit is hanging below that dust boot quite a bit. I'll adjust that. I didn't set it correctly when I've set it in there, but that's okay. It gives a good view for the video anyway. So on the first use, I quickly realized that I needed to up the speeds and feeds of most all of my files because this VFD is quite a bit stronger. It's more optimized, it runs better. And then of course the ball screws just seem to operate better in my opinion. So after using this for a few weeks, I can tell you I've been able to really batch out a lot of stuff faster than I was before. Guitar trays and baseball trays and of course our mallet templates, all this stuff we sell on our online store. And the CNC has really opened up a world for us as far as the business goes because it's allowed us to make those type things here in a garage shop. I can tell you this thing works extremely fast compared to the 4XXL. Now I probably had those speeds a little conservative, but I've been able to push this thing and it's really impressive me. I was even able to make my wife a custom retirement sign you see here, fill those engravings in with epoxy, and that's just one of the things I love about the CNC is I had the idea, I put it in the software, sent it to the machine, and I made it. And she loved it. It was a great retirement gift for her. And one thing I've been impressed with is the fine details, how nice things are coming out. Like on the lettering I did on my wife's retirement gift, the lettering across the bottom is really detailed. You can see that even right around the A and the dot on the I, like everything's really nicely detailed, and that's pretty small lettering. And then the stars in our baseball tray, you can tell how nice and crisp they look. And then of course, Carbide 3D has made a lot of stuff with their machine in their own facility. And you can see here, they've done some nice, fine detail work with this machine. So accuracy and precision with the Shapeoko 5, you're not gonna have any issues with that. As far as complexity on operating this goes, I think Carbide's done a really good job as far as kind of putting that to rest. They have their own training that you can get that's free. You can actually do it now before you buy the machine. Download the software and start walking through that at my.carbide3d.com. That's just a good free training for you to get started. Kind of takes away the barrier of entry to these machines, in my opinion. One thing people get nervous about on a machine like this is messing something up. I can tell you that because these are MDF inserts here that you're going to install, you can replace those easily with 3/4 inch MDF. You're going to mess that up. Your bits are going to get into that. It's a waste table for a reason, so don't let that concern you. If you're new to CNC, you can see here mine are engraved with the guitar trays that I had it set just a little too deep. That way it cut them out perfectly, and that's what that is there for. So don't worry about that part. Few things that I love about the Shapeoko 5 Pro that weren't on the 4XXL, or at least not on mine. First and foremost, there's an emergency stop button now. All I have to do is if this machine's running and something happens, all I have to do is run out here and, or if I'm already out here, just hit the stop button, you'll see the lights go off. It's off. It stops the spindle, it stops everything. Everything stops. That's handy if you have a setting that went wrong or you didn't program something wrong, and or your work comes unclamped, or any number of issues that may come up for you. You just bam, you hit that stop button, it's off. To restart, you just turn the switch, everything powers back on, except the spindle. Everything else will come out, the lights will come back on. Now I've got the VFD spindle with this kit, and this thing is fantastic. I would highly recommend, if it's in your budget, to pick this up. It's much, much quieter than the router was on the 4XXL. Now, it does have its own controller, which wires directly into the main board, and all of that is controlled in the software. So once you set it up and you press start, it'll automatically move the spindle over, you'll set the bit, all that good stuff. And then once it gets ready to cut, it turns itself on, it turns itself off. This is a huge upgrade over the 4XXL that I was accustomed to previously. Another big upgrade is the ball screws. This thing is tight. There's no shaking and moving and anything like that. It's really, really well done. And as far as setup goes, as previously discussed, it was super stupid simple to put together. Their instructions were top notch. The dust collector that I've got took longer to put together than this CNC machine. One thing that Carbide did extremely well as far as the assembly process goes in the wiring is everything only plugs into one place. In other words, all those connectors, they only match up to the connector it's supposed to go with. Where in the previous version, the 4XXL, I had a little trouble as far as wiring things up wrong to begin with. So I'm glad they refined that process. Another thing that I absolutely love about this machine, this is a 4x2. It takes up a little over 4 feet wide, a little over 2 feet deep as far as the footprint goes, but this is a much smaller footprint as far as the Y-axis goes than the XXL was. So I will be able to conserve space here, which I absolutely love about this. This 4x2 is the perfect size for my garage wood shop, and probably a lot of yours, just because of that. It doesn't take up as much floor space. If you need the bigger size, they certainly have the 4x4. I rarely cut anything. And with this being able to index, in other words, you can run full sheets of plywood through this with an indexing feature and make giant 8-foot long signs if you wanted to. There's really no limitation there other than having to index a couple of more times. If you don't currently have a CNC, or you have one that doesn't have the little bit setter function, this thing is awesome too. It's going to automatically zero your Z every time. That makes life so much easier. I started with the 4XXL, it didn't have that, so I was setting Z every time I changed bits. That's a nightmare. Get you one of these. It comes with the 5 Pro. If you get the 4XXL or one of the other models that doesn't come with that, I would add that on. And the underlighting can't be understated. That is an extremely nice feature, not only for content creators, but just seeing your work and seeing the bit work or the machine work. That underlighting is one of the best features they added to the 5 Pro, and as simple as it is, it just makes it so much nicer. What would I change? Well, speaking from experience from the 4XXL and now this 5 Pro, really I wish Carbide 3D would offer these MDF inserts for sale just individually, so I could buy like a pack. And on this one, for instance, there's 12 of them wide by 2 feet or whatever that they are. I wish I could just buy them instead of me having to rip them down, drill the holes. If those were provided, that would be awesome. Another thing I don't really care for is the loudness of the motors on the ball screw or the X, Y, and Z axis. They're a little noisy, and I know that's kind of nitpicking because this machine's already making noise, but those are actually louder than the spindle. So if they can find a way to quieten those down in the Shapeoko 6, that would probably be a positive. The main control board's a little loud, there's a little fan running, but honestly, if the machine's running, you're not gonna hear that. It's only when it's sitting idle. Can you hear it? It's just a low hum. If that bothers you, then there it is. So if they can find a way to quieten those X, Y, and Z motors down with this spindle, like, it would be very, very quiet to work with. You could literally work in the shop without hearing protection because it would be that quiet, I think. The spindle makes very little noise, even when cutting. So that's kind of impressive too. Another thing I like about this machine, or actually the company, is their support. Anytime you call them, they're gonna get you what you need or try to help you in the best way possible. And that's not just coming from me, someone who's working with Carbide 3D. I've heard this time and time again from people who don't work with them. They just purchase the machine. Now, if you're just starting out in CNC, what bits do you need to get started? I'm gonna talk about the ones I think you really need. You're gonna get a 1/4" end mill with this machine if you buy this one, or Shapeoko 4. I think most all of them come with at least 1 bit. I would absolutely pick up a few extra 1/4" end mills. Those are one of the most used bits that I use. I would also recommend picking up an 1/8" end mill, which is half the size of the 1/4", and that's going to help you with some finer details or pockets and things like that. If you want to get really fine details like small lettering, small stars, then a 30° V-bit similar to this one is what you're going to want to get. However, starting out, what I really think most people should start out with, you can see the 60° V-bit on the right and the 90 on the left. So the 90 is going to be a wider cut, the 60 is a more steep cut, and then of course the 30 is even steeper than that. And then last but certainly not least, a surfacing bit. That's where you can flatten things, like you can flatten boards, slabs, different things like that, or surface your epoxy fills, which makes things much, much faster. That's what I would recommend, getting one of those as well for your CNC. Those bits will get you through 85–90% of what you'll start out making on your CNC. There's actually a starter kit that has most of these in them. I'll drop a link to that in the description below, as well as everything you've seen today. Another thing I would recommend if you're getting a CNC is to pick up a good quality caliper. I use this one, Metituyo brand. I can't say that, but this is the one I use. It's a very accurate, very nice caliper. You're going to need that to measure your thickness of your board so that you can put that into the software so that the machine knows how deep to cut, different things like that. This is a must-have if you have a CNC. I don't necessarily think this machine is for everybody, but I do think it's a really good fit for a garage shop making products like you've seen me making with it. Batching out trays and templates and things like that. This thing will work extremely well for you. Now, if you're in a large production shop, you need a giant CNC, then obviously this isn't your fit, but you're also going to be investing thousands of dollars more than what you would in something like this. For me, this is perfect for my shop. If you'd like to check out the Shapeoko 5 Pro or their other models for yourself, I'll put a link in the description and the pinned comment so you can go check them out and see if they're right for your shop. I'd like to thank Carbide 3D for allowing me to give the 4XXL to Noah. If you didn't see that video, go check it out, and then sending me this one in its place. Thank you, Carbide. If you like this video, check out my 5 best-selling CNC projects right there. Click in the box, get to the big old virtual fist bump. Also, another one of my favorites right there.